Hello, everyone. Welcome to Be Well Clinic channel. I'm Amy Mihaly, and I'm going to talk to you all about detox today. I am so excited. I can't believe all of the things. I'm going to get my notes out here. I can't believe all the things there are to talk about detox. Just writing a list is a whole page. So I think I have organized it in a semi-organized manner in my brain. It always changes because that's what you do when you teach, what I do when I teach at least. So I'm very excited to talk about this topic and to share with y'all. That's not how you say it. Sorry, Southern people. Share with y'all about what to do. So if you are new to our YouTube lives and you are watching live, you can log in to give a comment to us. You can type into the live chat. If it's not automatically pulled up, you can find it underneath. You can find it underneath the bar where it says save video and upload and all that kind of stuff. So you can do that. It is a Google sign-in, so you don't have to create a YouTube channel. You can just sign in with your Google account and ask questions. Afterwards, like everything else, you can ask questions for in the comments, and I will look at those when I get a chance. Okay, let's see. I had one person pop on enough. We'll see what else we have. I'm really excited to talk to you about all of the things, and I just want to give us a minute to make sure everybody's on that can be on, and I will work on looking at that camera. Okay, so detoxing. Why do we need to talk about detoxing? The most important reason for detoxing is going to be the cleansing and higher functionality of our bodies. That's ultimately what we're looking at. So when we want to talk about detoxing, we want to look at a few different things. Number one, what is a toxin? Number two, why do the toxins get in there? Number three, what effect does it have in our body, which will also tell you what symptoms you're going to see when you have too many toxins or toxins affecting a certain part of your body. So let's answer those first few questions here first. What is a toxin? I define a toxin, for simplicity's sake, as anything not helpful to the body at this time. So there are toxins that are always toxins. There are chemicals and poisons that always hurt us, always hurt our bodies. There are also toxins that in too much amount are going to be toxic, but in a correct amount aren't toxic. So this is going to be minerals. All minerals and metals fall into this. Any kind of, we can have toxicity in vitamin A, toxicity in vitamin C, even real food ones. It's hard to get real food toxicity, but it is possible. All right, so we have all the toxicity. We have, so too much of something. We have something that's just is a poison. And natural and man-made substances. And then we have other things that the body just has to deal with. So as I help people with the GAPS diet and we're healing a leaky gut, there are certain foods we don't eat at certain times. Are those foods inherently bad or toxic? No, they are not. But they are toxic or they're work to the body right now. So our main goal is to not be at a workload place to the body when we're healing. When we want to maintain health, we want the workload to be less. I will briefly go into this because it's very helpful as we're understanding why the importance of detox. So we have catabolic and anabolic balance. Catabolic is tear things down. It's the cat knocking stuff off the table. Anabolic is to build things up. Ana or A meaning beginning or creating, right? So anabolic, catabolic. So as we're tearing things down, the cells, the body, the organ systems, this is damage happening. And when that damage is happening, teeter-totter gets really high. A lot of catabolic activity, and that catabolic activity is going to be hurting us, right? It's causing destruction. You can't just demolish buildings all the time. You have to also rebuild them. So catabolic action or destruction of the body happen with toxins. They're like ping pong balls that are bouncing around. Free radicals are chemicals, obviously. And my connection is unstable. Hopefully, you guys can continue to see me. Please let me know if it does not work anymore. Okay, we're just going to go forward and hope that we are okay. Okay, so catabolic and anabolic. I got off, so let me get back. Catabolic, that tear down happens really much when there's toxins. So we have two things to do. We could rebuild the cells as fast as we're tearing them down, but that could get pretty extreme. The other thing we could do is we could stop tearing down the cells so much. So how do we do that? Well, let's remove things that are causing problems like toxins. So we can take toxins out of our body, out of our life, and that would help with this catabolic breakdown. So that is what a toxin is. A toxin ultimately adds to the catabolic or workload of the body. And we need to have that low so we can have a good margin of energy to heal. Okay, why do we need to detox? There's two questions in this to answer it. Number one is why we need to detox, meaning why can't we just have broken down unhealthy cells? And obviously the answer is that doesn't work, but let's talk about it in a little more depth. So one of the concepts of why toxins hurt us is not just that they're ping pong balls bouncing around, but they also get stored places. When they get stored into cells, which is where they get stored, we start getting into the realm of water. Okay, so here's a really great book. It's called The Fourth Phase of Water by Jared Pollock. This book talks about a fourth phase of water, a phase that is an exclusion zone or easy water. Structured water is another way that it is. And this is something that basically is water in a structured and gelatinous formation, which then is causing an exclusion zone. That's why he calls it that. What is an exclusion zone? An exclusion zone is it excludes everything out. This is good because we want the toxins and other things to get out. So our cells should be made of structured water pretty much primarily. It doesn't exclude our own DNA and RNA and other organelles that need to be there. But as the water structures in the different places of the cell where it needs to structure, it excludes out any toxins, which is good. That means that toxins are pulled out. So if you think about health claims of structured water, and there are good and bad structured water ways to get structured water. When you talk about that, you do, that's where those health benefits come from, because you're literally cleaning your cells because you're creating a gelatinous structure that it's not like The Office where Jim put the stapler in Jell-O, right? It's actually a Jell-O that pushes everything out as it was being formed so that Jell-O is pure and crystal clear. So pure crystal clear Jell-O, Jell-O water, if you will, or exclusion zone water is what we want in our cells. This is going to have the cell function really, really well. So that's great. We want that, of course. I want to go different places, but I want to give you all the beginnings here. Okay, the other thing that we need to know about cells and how they work is what do toxins do in the cell? So you can think of it as trash laying around, which is definitely true. But there's another piece to it. Damage to the cell causes the cell to need to either repair or completely reproduce, or the organ has to reproduce a new cell to replace the cell that was damaged by the toxins. What happens when a cell needs to reproduce? Just going into chemistry. Welcome to the video. So as we go into chemistry, when we go into the cell, and the mitochondria are pumping out ATP for energy. Very efficient way for energy to be produced. Also very messy way for energy to be produced. And we have byproducts and free radicals that are produced by this energy production that damage the cell a little bit, but it's repairable. It's not a big deal. However, during reproduction, we can't afford to have that kind of damage to our cell. So when the cell needs to reproduce to create a new cell, then the mitochondrial action of ATP production, energy production, has to turn off. So it turns off, and what happens then? It turns off, and you, sorry, lost my train of thought. I was worried someone's texting me that the video didn't work. We want to turn it off to reproduce the cell, because the free radical damage would damage the reproducing cell, which is the whole point of reproducing the cell, is to not have damaged cells. So we turn it off. when we turn the ATP off, the cell can continue to produce energy, but it is a inefficient or very slow way to produce energy. This energy production can maintain the cell's life, but it cannot produce. So it maintains cell life, everything is fine, but you can't give, you can't go, you can't move, there's no excess energy. This is really important because in certain health conditions, we have this exact same shutdown. And Dr. Natasha, who did the GAPS diet, her theory that she taught us is the idea that cell production, when it becomes so great, when so many cells are damaged from toxins and so many cell mitochondria are turned off, that the whole body becomes alive but not productive. Things like chronic fatigue, MS, fibromyalgia, ALA maybe is in that list. I'm trying to remember all the ones. So anything where just one day you wake up and just can't get out of bed, or your energy is just gone one day, or gone significantly. Some people never get to the full shutdown, potentially a central shutdown of mitochondria coming from command central as opposed to each individual cell. So that theory too. And then when we're healing the body, we eventually can get to the place where enough cells are healed that the mitochondria all turn back on, or the ones that can. And then we start getting energy back. This is why it takes so long and is so almost impossible seeming for things like chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia, MS to restart. Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease can be in this camp because that's a very toxin-producing bacterial infection. So all these different things are what is up with that. Okay, so why do we need to clean the cells? Well, so they can work. What do cells do? Everything, right? Depends on what kind of cell it is. Also, we want the cell receptor sites to be clean, because if the receptor sites and the cell membranes are not clean, then we cannot have things land on the cell, tell the cell to do something, and have an effect, which is the whole point of having a body, right? To do things. So there is another book called Cancer and the New Biology of Water. This is a book written by Tom Cowan, who wrote, it's a build-off of Dr. Pollack's work. So these are two great books. This really is talking about the cell cleansing, and I will just throw out a fun word about that. So there is a water, so structured water is helpful. Structured water comes from naturally comes from ground pressure, underground pressure. So underground springs create structured water. The ocean creates structured water, but it's salty, so we can't drink that. Sunlight will also create the UV radiation, or sunlight creates structured water. Let's come back to that one. Okay, so he talks about one particular type of water, which is called, I always say this wrong, deuterium-free water. So deuterium is a hindrance to the body, and there is deuterium light and deuterium free water, which basically allow the water in the cells to more quickly go into exclusion zone. From my remembrance and understanding of his work, it's been a while since I've heard his lecture there. Okay, so how do you spell that? D-E-U-T-E-R-I-U-M, deuterium water. Tom Cowan, C-O-W-A-N. So great thing to do. All right, let's move on. We know what is a toxin. We know why we need to remove it from the body. Lots of different reasons. Functionality, damage. Damage creates trash. Trash has to get moved out. Also, mitochondria and energy production is dependent on toxins. So for those of you that have heard, like I just was watching a video about near-infrared and far-infrared sauna, because that is not an area of expertise for me. They were talking about how one of the most common things people say when they detox or go to an infrared sauna is that they have an energy boost. Now you know why. We are stimulating mitochondria action. We are cleaning up cells so the mitochondria can be present. Also, I'll come to it now, even though it's so exciting. We are structuring water, which excludes toxins from the cells, which makes them be able to function better. more clearly and be receptive to other cells around them so they can be more responsive to all the signals that the body is, so the body can create and work in a cohesive unit. So sunlight does it too, near-infrared does it. All light is going to do it. It's light, so this is light therapy. Heat therapy causes you to sweat out toxins, and there are definitely things that happen in a detoxification way when you are sweating. That's called hyperthermia. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But light therapy, meaning sunlight or the spectrum of light, that is going to be the most important with that. Okay, William Herschel is the guy who discovered the idea of near-infrared sauna, or infrared. So infrared is on the spectrum of light, which goes from violet to red, right? There is near-infrared, meaning just above infrared, and non-visible to our eyes spectrum of light that we've labeled near-infrared. So this is a spectrum of the sunlight that comes. This spectrum of the sunlight is the hottest. So what William Herschel did, besides observing the sun through his old telescopes, he lived right at the turn of 1800, so 17 whatever to died in the early 1800s. He had, so old school telescope, but he studied that. He put different plates in front of the telescope lens of different colors, and he observed different patterns of light, and he thought heat. So then he devised a test to see about that. He did a prism, right? And he put different thermometers in the different light colors and saw what the temperature was of them. But he accidentally put a thermometer, well, it was a control thermometer, right past red, right? So he could have control for the temperature of the room as he's doing this experiment. That light right past red was the hottest one. It was actually the hottest, strongest action, which is what we now label near or infrared. So pretty cool. So as we have that infrared sauna, light therapy, it was interesting to dive down to that hole, and I did not leave enough time to research, so I will not claim to be any kind of expert about infrared and near infrared. There are both of them. I watch videos proclaiming the benefits, and I watch videos talking about how they don't work. But the guy who was really serious about how it doesn't work was all about how it didn't make you hot enough to sweat. But that's not the point, as far as I understand in what I just told you. But it is some point, so maybe it's a point he was wanting, or maybe people are falsely advertising. But light therapy alone is going to give you, as long as you're getting that near infrared spectrum of light, it's going to give you an effect because it energizes your cells, your mitochondria. It will help to structure your water. It will warm things up, which does help. So being in a hyperthermic, meaning hot or feverish state, does initiate cellular detox. When you are very, very ill, I have multiple, two friends in particular that have had and still struggle with chronic Lyme disease. And two people who went to a clinic in different places, and one of their therapies was to initiate hyperthermia through various means. You can do it yourself, just getting in a really hot bath, wrap up in a wool blanket and go to bed with socks and a hat on. Like, keep that heat in and get yourself to a feverish temperature state. That initiates a ton of toxins to come out of the cells. It's not a super pleasant experience at the moment, but it really helps to clean toxins. So in a really strong effect, when you can't really handle life because you're so damaged or there's so many toxins in your body, we definitely want to get those out quickly. For the majority of us who the toxins are annoying, they cause soreness and muscle aches and joint pains and brain fogginess, and the list goes on, which we will get to. With that, we have, it's really good to do gentle detox methods as opposed to we got to detox as fast as possible. But there is a time and place for both. I got off topic a little bit. Near infrared, far infrared saunas. William Herschel is the guy who discovered that additional spectrum of light. And those are all just electromagnetic frequency wavelengths on the whole spectrum, to really high frequency, to radio waves, microwaves, all that kind of stuff. So, okay. It's so cool about the sun. Since we started talking about the sun, let's just keep talking about that. So the sun initiates detox. There are so many ways it does. Number one, it travels through our skin and affects our cells, affects our organs. There are subatomic particles of the sun that go deep into your body and directly affect your organs. It's all about wavelengths and other things, and I am not a physicist, so I had a physicist who was telling me about it, which was really cool. And there's lots of subatomic particles that are doing stuff. Some of those are going to be blocked if you do sunscreen. So I do not recommend doing sunscreen unless you really know you're going to get fried to a crisp, because that increases catabolic activity. When you hurt your cells, you increase your toxins that way too, right? So it's always a balance. But when we have just the this is my puppy Pat that has decided to join us. When we have the sunlight coming in, UV blocking, right? That's what we do with sunscreens, even coconut oil or other natural sunscreens. It's blocking the effect of some particles. But there are other particles that travel through because they're not bothered by the little things like your skin barrier, right? So there is some benefit to be in the sun. Even when it's winter and you're fully clothed because it's really cold outside, there is still benefit to the sun. There is a lot of particles that can travel through all of those layers into your body and help energize you. So this is really helpful and really important to go out in the sun, to know that the sun re-energizes because it structures water, because those subatomic particles penetrate into the different places in your organs, into the mitochondria, into the cells, and stimulate and energize them. Your cell is basically a battery. It's water, it's conductive, it works off electricity, and so the sun's energy helps recharge the battery. It's going to make everything work better. Okay, so that is that. Now let's get into let's talk about what I call gentle methods of detox first. And then I want to get into the more confusing ways that your body detoxes. Before we go into that, I want to talk about what you feel like when you have toxins. There's two categories of this. One would be what you feel like when your body is baseline toxic. Okay, so there are symptoms that you have potentially learned to deal with that are actually really symptoms of toxicity, symptoms of your body has toxins stored that are just wreaking havoc because no one can deal with them. There's not enough energy, not enough immune activity, not enough detox pathway space to get these out of your body, and so they're just causing havoc until you can manage to get them out. Or you store them in tissue where they're less damaging, but they can cause other problems. So toxins out, playing around, they're going to cause more acute, painful kind of things. Headaches, brain fog can be caused by toxins, muscle aches, soreness, joint aches, soreness, popping in your joints. Let's see, digestive upset, runny stools, loose stools, because the body's just trying to flush toxins out. You can get, if you have an overwhelm of toxins overall, you can also get gallbladder and kidney stones. That's the other one. Those are pieces of toxin that have calcified or had some other issue around them. They've just been around a long time, or you have so many of them. Your bile can get sludgy, just small toxins, maybe not stones, but small toxins, lots of them in the bile. And then that makes you have issues with digesting fat, which has all sorts of bad repercussions. And then you can have gallbladder spasms and attacks and lead to your gallbladder getting out. The reason for that is toxins. The reason has nothing to do with your gallbladder. Poor gallbladder gets yanked out. It really has to do with the toxicity that your body is trying to deal with. The fatty streaks on your liver, probably most of the time, at least I believe, is caused by toxin damage in your liver. We can have toxins that affect our nerves in diabetes. Both insulin and glucose are pro-inflammatory, meaning toxin, right? They hurt things. If they hurt and damage your nerves, which is where sugar and insulin like to be, is nerve tissue, they can give you what's called diabetes type 3, which is Parkinson's. They can give you diabetes type 2, which is, neuralgia, right? A lessening, a painful sensation, and eventually a lessening sensation of your skin, nerve conduction from your feet. It's really dangerous for diabetic people. They could step on pins and never know, cut their feet and never know because of the damage to the nerves. So all of that happens because of toxins. Brain fog, again, heavy metals and glucose and insulin really can do damage to the nerves, including in our brain. Let's see, what else? Then we get to the more benign toxicity symptoms, which would be weight gain or unable to take weight off. When we have toxins in the fat cells, because they got stored there because they were wreaking havoc and we got to get them somewhere because they are hurting us, those cells, unless the detox systems are open and accepting new patronage, those cells are going to hold on to that toxin. And holding on to that toxin means they stay big, and no matter what you do, you are not going to lose weight. This also starts creating a hormone imbalance problem, which potentially already happened because of, this is such a complex subject. The hormone imbalance can come because of those cells that were not responding because they're dirty, or the receptors aren't responding. So we have now an overflow of hormones coming out at the cells because the cells are so toxic, they're not responding. But then some tissues might get a response because they're so clean. So then we have an over response of some and an under response of others. And it just, toxins make a mess. They make a mess of our bodies. They really, really hurt our bodies when we have too many toxins. Where do the toxins come from? We never answered that question. 1, they come from outside the body. 2, they come from inside the body. Inside the body, they may come from cell ATP production, but our own body cells making toxins is very small and completely manageable. That never causes long-term issues. Your own body doesn't. Not if it's fed well enough. Out in the other inside of the body would be our gut flora. If you have poor gut flora, the byproduct of those floras, eating certain foods, are going to be a toxic discharge. Those toxins are going to go and affect our body. And people estimate that about 90% of the toxins in our body at any given time are from our own gut flora. So we do need to pay attention to that and get our flora good. Get the good guys in charge so that the opportunistic, the quote bad flora, gets in check and starts actually behaving nicely and helping the body. Because most flora is not actually bad. There are very few like truly evil flora. Most flora is actually opportunistic. So they will work for whoever's in charge. And if it's a party town, they're going to go with the party. As opposed to they're happy to be a hardworking, vitamin-producing, enzyme, breaking down your food producing probiotic. So thankfully, most flora is actually there to help. There are very few actually evil, if any. That's a debatable subject. There are not a lot of flora that actually are there to hurt you. That's a whole nother discussion. I did a video on the immune system, another YouTube live on the immune system, where we really talked about the flora, communication. I think it was in that one. I will think about it when I'm off and link the YouTube video that I talked about flora and the immune system and the environment. Why germ theory is not complete, why there is another idea that we need to know. Pretty sure it's the immune system one, but I'll double check for you guys and post it in the description after this live is done. Okay, so we have toxins from flora, we have toxins from our cells' energy production and breakdown and all of that, and we have toxins from outside. The outside ones we can do things about the most quickly, so that's a good thing to look at. And that can potentially make up a lot of toxins. The 90% of our own flora is an estimation. People who have good flora is going to have a lot less than people who have bad. So good and bad, right? So yeah, we want to keep the toxins from the world out. How do we get toxins in from the world? Water, breathing, skin absorption, and food, right? Intake, of course. So with that, water we can do, you can drink spring water. So I have El Dorado water. I just happen to be very thirsty right now. That was good timing. So we have El Dorado water, is our natural spring water that I really like. There's other ones. You want to just check what are they doing to test the quality, and are they adding chlorine, because you don't want extra chemicals added. We just want the underground structured water, which is great. Okay. We have water filters. So you can get a Berkey, or you can get, there's some other Berkey-like ones. You can get reverse osmosis. You can get a carbon filter, like a Brita or a Pure. Carbon filters take out a lot of things. Refrigerator filters usually take out less, but oftentimes you can buy upgrade filters for your refrigerator if you're really a drink out of the refrigerator person. Okay, so we want to get as many toxins out as possible. Water is one way. Water that you cook in and that you drink. Water that you bathe in and shower in. Fluoride and chlorine are very damaging toxins absorbed into our body. They affect every cell. They affect our thyroid, which affects growth and healing and sleep and lots of things. So we don't really want them. So get as many as you can that your budget will afford. Get the toxins out, right? We're just lowering the load. Then we can do, so that's water. Food. Okay, food. There's things that we put on food, right? Pesticides, sprays, or, what is the wax? Like there's so much wax on vegetables. What is that? How is it? What is it trapping? Maybe the wax itself is harmless, but what got stuck in it that may be harmful. So don't prefer wax. It's better to get plastic covered cucumbers, for example, or to peel them. I prefer, there's a lot of nutrients in the skin, right? So it's better not to, but if you need to, because it's what you can afford, do that. Then we have organic pesticides, which are better. And then we have no pesticides, like in your garden, which is best. Then we have commercial pesticides, which a lot of them are known neurotoxins and cancer producing. This is why the Roundup is linked to cancer, because it is a toxin which gets stored in cells, causes a cell to be damaged, and that cell replicates or other things come in. There's lots of theories, lots of bad things. You can pick one. They're all bad. They start with toxin exposure. Of course, that's what caused that kind of thing. Okay, so we have, right, Cancer and the New Biology of Water. It's right here in this book. Okay, so we have pesticides on the food. We have what was exposed to in the store. One note on buying organic, we are, as health practitioners, seeing an increase in the number of patients with parasites. Could be different theories for that, but one theory that we have been discussing in my group has been, is it because we're eating more organic produce and there's more bugs on them, more, not just bugs, but little parasite bugs. So one way you can get rid of parasites off your food is to soak it in apple cider vinegar for 15-20 minutes, maybe half an hour. I think it's half an hour to really get good and to pull those out. So that's one thing. If your gut flora is pretty weak and you're worried about your ability to defend yourself against things that shouldn't be in your body, stomach acid is weak, for example, then you may really want to work on that. Otherwise, parasites also are found to be helpful. They eat toxins. A lot of times we have parasite infections and yeast overgrowth because they break down dead and dying tissue and they eat the trash. So if you have a lot of trash in your body, you're going to have a lot of parasites and you're going to have a lot of yeast. And you're not going to be able to get rid of them no matter what you do, even a medicine, because it'll come back because you still have trash in your body. So we got to get the toxins out. That will lower your overall toxic load, because now we don't have parasites who create trash, eating trash. It's better trash, hopefully. It just, we don't have to deal with any of that. All right. This is why I kind of did a list. It's so much and they're so interconnected. So we're just going with the flow. Hopefully this makes sense. All right, let's talk about the pathways of detoxification and how things get removed from the body. So there are lots of ways. There's lots of ways that the toxins will gather, right? So the cells are going to dump them out. There are toxins in the stool. Our own gut flora and body flora binds to toxins so that they can get removed in the stool or get broken down by the liver to be put into the bile. So all of that happens, but where do they end up? So if we eat a toxin, in our mouth, the toxin will get absorbed through the gut to the bloodstream. If it's water-soluble toxins travel in the bloodstream, which is damaging to the bloodstream, by the way. Body gets them out as quickly as possible, goes right to the liver. That's exactly the first pass effect is something we talk about with medications, which are also toxins, right? Potentially have a beneficial effect, especially short-term, maybe necessary life-saving effect, but they're chemicals. They are foreign chemical substances, so the body clears them out. The liver, there's something called a first pass effect, and that is when the medication is absorbed into the body, into the bloodstream, it goes to the liver, like really quickly. There is between 1/3 and 2/3 of that medication, if I remember my numbers from school right, are removed in the first pass effect. So they have to get very high doses of medication compared to IV doses because the liver pulls so much out. It's very efficient. And this is why with liver failure, you make sure to dose people smaller because the liver isn't as efficient as pulling those chemicals out to break them down and put them in the bile. So we have toxins, water soluble, they get absorbed into the bloodstream, they go straight to the liver, and the liver tries to grab all of them and pulls them out. The water is not a sieve, it's a whole bunch of blood vessels, and so the blood filters through all these blood vessels. Lots of enzymes are waiting to do stuff to the things that filter through that shouldn't be there, pull them into the tissue, into the bile, flushes them to the liver. This is why it's good to eat liver, and it's okay to eat liver, because it is not a sieve, it doesn't hold toxins. It houses the tons of capillary beds that allow the toxins to flow through to be worked with. If you think of an assembly line, there's little workers all over the capillary beds of the liver. And they are doing all the work, getting rid of the trash. But the trash flows very quickly out in the bile to the gallbladder. And then when you eat fat, the gallbladder releases the bile into the stool, digests the fat with the bile, and then the toxins in the bile stay in the stool and go out of the body. Hooray! It's a very nice and efficient system. That's water-soluble toxins. If the liver becomes overwhelmed, it may go other places, like the lungs will be a backup to that. The kidneys are going to take some of the toxin, concentrate it, and put it into the bladder. We can get irritated bladder symptoms if we have a lot of toxicity flow through that. So that's why a lot of people have bladder symptoms. That's why bedwetting can persist for so long. There is very few people and kids and even adults who wet the bed or have interstitial cystitis. Most of them are toxicity issues. There's a few other things, but most of them are toxicity issues. So, yes. Okay, fat-soluble toxins, where do those go? So fat-soluble toxins are absorbed into the lymph. The lymph is a different system, obviously, and it goes primarily to the lungs to be detoxified and removed from the body. The lymph also will dump into the bloodstream eventually, and it's not exactly the way that works, but eventually there are some fat-soluble toxins that get removed other ways, but the primary organ of detoxification is the lungs for fat-soluble. What happens when you have a lot of fat-soluble toxins damaging the lungs? We get asthma. We get breathing difficulties. We get lung damage, right? And so what is happening with asthma? You can watch a longer video on this, well, meaning a 7-minute video I have on this. But in brief, the toxin comes out in a bronchial, right, in a capillary bed or an alveolar sac. It's going to damage that area. If a lot of toxins are coming out, the whole area gets damaged. It's like a huge pothole in a highway. Can't fix it while the highway's going, so the body closes the highway, and there we get some shortness of breath or symptoms of asthma, right? And then as soon as the repair is done, which usually takes 5 to 20 minutes, then the lung opens back up and the highway resumes and the breathing is normal. When we give medication in that sense, we're actually forcing the highway back open before repair, so that next time damage happens somewhere else, the body closes both down, we force them back open. Now there's 4 places, now there's 7 places, now there's 10 places, and eventually asthma is a life-threatening disease because we are not allowing the lungs to heal. Before medications, asthma was a benign self-limiting disease. 2 reasons. 1, medication. 2, we have way more toxins. Not all the medication's fault. But it should be a clue for us. We have a lot of toxins that aren't getting dealt with. If the lungs isn't handling it, where else do the toxins go? They get stored. Stored toxins that are fat soluble are things like heavy metals, hormonal, estrogenics, there's another big category, plastics, petroleum products. These are all fat soluble, lipophilic, and they are going to be stored in nervous tissue, cells, and brain. Not great places to store toxins. So when we have a lot of toxins stored there, we're going to get all sorts of memory issues, anything under the sun. We're going to get learning disabilities, dyspraxia, which is clumsiness, dyslexia, right, mixing up your letters, anorexia, schizophrenia, any kind of brain thing is toxins attacking the brain or being stored in the brain, in that the cells of the brain, of those really important cell tissues, are actually toxic and not functioning well. So we need to clean that up. Heavy metals are huge here as well. And this would be the link of why some of those bigger symptoms or bigger set of symptoms that we put in a disease category would be linked to things that have lots of heavy metals in them. So that's going to be some, right, vaccinations are going to do that. Different, I don't know, they put metal in baby food, or they found a whole bunch of metal in baby food when they tested, 98%. So there's a lot of metal. I don't know if people are doing it on purpose or just being careless, but there's a lot of ways to get metal into our body. And if we're not supporting our detox system, that gets stored places and really affects our functioning in our life. Okay. That brings us to another very interesting way to detox your body, and that is fat. Eating fat is super helpful for detoxing. I bet you guys can guess why, because you've been listening, and I know you're very smart. Number 1, we get the bile moving, right? If we're eating fat all the time, every day, the bile is flowing, that never gets sludgy. We're making a lot of it because we have to. It doesn't sit, so we don't get gallstones, and it's just getting out of the body. Bile also helps. Fat and bile help the stool to move. So if you're constipated, those toxins will potentially even reabsorb if they sit there long enough. So we want to have a stool at least every 24 hours, maybe 48 once in a while, but 24 is your goal, or more often, because that helps the toxins not be being reabsorbed. It gets them out of the body. So that's number 1 reason for eating bile. Number 2 reason for eating fat, not bile, is that some of those, back to anabolic, catabolic, build up and tear down. Some of the cells in your nervous system, for example, that were damaged can't be repaired because there's not enough cholesterol to make a new cell. Some parts of your brain are 60% dry weight saturated fat. We have to eat fat to maintain lipophilic membranes, phospholipid membranes, the membrane of every cell in our body. We need it for brain and nervous tissue. We need it for immune function, hormone function to work properly. Any organ, anything. So the immune system is considered a very hungry organ, is a phrase that we'll say. That's because you have to make a lot of cells because they get used up a lot. Well, if you're making cells, you need a lot of fat and you need a lot of protein, and the immune system will suffer, the hormone system will suffer if we do not have enough fat and enough protein. So eating fat will cause detoxification because finally you gave the body something to replace that cell that was damaged, so now it can let that cell go. It breaks down the cell and all of the toxins stored in it are released and put into the circulation to hopefully the liver is functioning well enough to pull it out, or the lungs are functioning well enough to pull it out. Okay, so eating fat is detoxifying. Number one, because it literally is building blocks for a new cell so we can get rid of a broken one. Number two, it helps the immune system to function, and the immune system's job is inflammation, which cleans up damage and repairs cells. So twofold, we have the building blocks and we have the workers, and so we can start detoxifying and helping. Same kind of deal with meat stock. Meat stock is fatty, and there's also amino acids in it. So it will go and feed the mitochondria. It will feed the cells, allow them to reproduce, and we start getting a detoxification effect because we fed the cells. All right. Let's talk about liver support for a minute and lung support. The lungs love fat. Oh, other reason to eat fat. The lungs love fat. They need a lot of cholesterol because they are fatty tissue, which is why the fatty toxins go there to be detoxed. They either get breathed out or they get into the mucus and get out of the body, right? It's another exit the body. And people who are very toxic will have a lot of mucus, and there's nothing you can do about that until the toxins get lower, until you get rid of some of your toxic load. And you want that mucus because it's containing lots of really nasty stuff that's in your body. Okay, so lung support, eat fat, take deep breath, deep cleansing breath. Find a app. I have a Prana Air app or something like that that tells you to breathe deep, hold it, breathe in, and there's different ones. It's fun. It's just a simple way to breathe deeply so that you are expelling toxins from your air. This is also a reason, I won't go there, never mind. All right, so we have breathing out, we have eating fat, we have exercising the lungs, doing some exercise. Exercise overall is just good. It gets lymph moving and blood moving and cells moving, action, right? We're a battery, so movement is also going to charge a battery. So the cells get charged up a little bit so they can do their job a little better. It's very, very good to move. Okay, that's it for lungs. Stop putting metals in your body. Stop putting plastic in your body. Stop putting fake hormones in your body. Get your own hormones balanced because that can be part of it. Eat a lot of fat. Take deep breaths. Okay, so that's how you support your lungs. If you are doing asthma, well, call me. Look at the video, but don't throw your inhaler away. But there's a way to back out of that. There's a way to heal the lungs and get the toxic load down, heal the lungs, and be able to be medication-free. I really believe that. So that's something you can work with me on. Okay. Liver support. There are two ways to support the liver, two big categories. Number one, we feed it so it has the strength to do its job. Number two, we cleanse it. Okay, and number three, we stimulate it. Okay, so number one, feeding it. That's food. What does the liver need? Number one, all the things that the liver need are in liver. So if you eat liver, you're giving the liver everything that the liver needs. So that's a really easy way to support your liver. You can eat liver in lots of different ways. I have lots of recipes or discussions about this. I'm not going to go further into it. You also need vitamin A and B, which are, by the way, in liver, but they are also in fat. They are also in cod liver oil, so that's really important. There's also a mix of minerals that your liver needs to function, as do your kidneys, right? Because we're going to kind of lump them in a little bit here. Minerals are really important for detoxification, both at the cell level and at the organ level, like kidneys and liver. What are good minerals? Good sea salts. Celtic sea salt, Redmond's real salt, Baja Gold salt. Himalayan's okay. It's really not super great in terms of mineral content. concentrates mineral drops, lots of other different concentrated trace mineral drops, taking different minerals. Calcium is helpful, magnesium is helpful. We want to have them in ratios. We don't want to overdo any mineral, especially sodium chloride. That's why we don't do table salt. Iodine is in the trace mineral, so you don't have to worry about getting an iodized salt. They only put it back in because they took it out. And lots of foods contain minerals too, right? You get lots of calcium from leafy greens, all that kind of stuff. All right, so lots of minerals. We'll support that. Eating liver, eating fat, eating cod liver oil, things like that are really great. Feeding. Number 2, cleansing. I mean, ultimately the liver cleanses itself, right? But we can stimulate it. That's why I feel like essential oils and cleanses, like coffee enemas, and there's lots of ways to cleanse the liver. And then there are herbs that also initiate the liver to cleanse. Adaptogenics are the category of herbs and oils, actually. Adaptogenics mean they're going to help the body function to its optimal. It will bring a low number up or a high number down. Right? It's not a forcing. There's no hormonal direction or chemical direction, which is what most medications do. This is a, hey, maybe you could try this. But sometimes the liver, when you say, hey, maybe you could try this, tries to do it, but isn't fed well enough to do it. And it will work for a bit, and then it'll actually tank harder. So we do want to always be feeding the liver before and during any kind of other cleansing of the liver. So if your liver is super tired and worn out because you have way too many toxins in your body, it's been working on overtime, so behind, just needs a clean slate, we don't juice a whole bunch right then, or we don't go on a huge cleanse, because that will be, it's too rough, it's too tired. It already knows it has toxins to deal with. So if you are truly in a very toxic state, you want to feed the liver first, and then later you could do a cleanse. If you are a healthy, well person and you are just doing a spring cleaning on your liver, you can just go ahead and do that cleanse. Totally great, totally fine. But if you do it and start feeling really, really bad, the first few hours or day, where it puts you in bed, where you're throwing up, where you can't stop your stools, like there's lots of pretty extreme symptoms, you need to feed your liver first. It's too fast, too much. It's not handling it. Okay? All right. Liver support. In general, sorry, I'm just looking at my category. We're not done with this. Essential oils. So essential oils can cleanse lots of different things, but they are adaptogenics. But again, it's a strong suggestion, and they're not always the best thing to do. Feeding is always best first. Always going to say that. It's always true. Feeding is always best first and during. So citrus essential oils are very cleansing to the cells. Grapefruit can help shrink fat cells. What do you know about shrinking fat cells? It was fat for a reason, right? It was big for a reason. So the shrinking of it means that it's being emptied, which is great. But if it's emptying into a system that can't handle the toxins, you're going to get worse symptoms. You're going to feel really poorly. And those toxins may distribute to a worse location. Having fat is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Right? Those toxins damaging vital organs or brain function is way worse than having some fat. I don't want you to have toxins either, right? We're going to get rid of them, but it's important to know what is actually happening in your body. On that note, when we look at heavy metals, oftentimes the brain does a pattern of staging metals. You start giving it opportunity to cleanse the metals from the brain, and it will do that and put it in fat cells. So some people start detoxing, which is supposed to help them lose weight, right? That's the point. And they gain weight. But then their brain functions better. But no one asked them that, right? So I've worked with people. I asked them, how's your brain function? Way better. Brain functions great. But I gained 10 pounds. The body's staging. It's staging the toxins into your fat cells. If you keep doing what you're doing, it's going to pull them all the way out of your body. But you have your brain function back, because that's really important, right? Okay. Essential oils are helpful, both for the cells, also for organs. They can stimulate organ effect, but again, don't stimulate until you've fed. All right, I won't belabor that point much more. I might come back to it, but I'll be done right now. All right, then we look at enemas. Let's talk about what enemas do. Enemas are going to pull toxins out of the stool, number one, right? It just flushes what's there, ready to be exited, out. This is really helpful when you're constipated to keep the flow going. It's also very helpful when you've been constipated for a long time. You have a lot of mucus, a lot of biofilms and yeast, which produces very sticky substances, and your stool gets caught there. Some of you guys have stool that was there the last 5 years. Like it never comes out cleanly. Even if you form a stool, it may be plastered against the sides of the walls. That plastered against the sides of the walls does lots of awful things. Number one, things get trapped in it, bacteria, yeast, viruses, partly there to break up and clean out the trash, right? Partly they're feasting because there's food for them. And nutrients maybe don't get absorbed as well depending on how thick that coat is. I know this is gross, but it's a thing. Parasites can live in there, like lots of things, right? It's a nice mesh of living, a nice ecosystem for a lot of different things. So you can have a huge load of non-productive or trash eating, because the trash is there and that's helpful to clean up the trash eating microbes. So we want to get that out. We want them out. We don't need the trash, and we don't need the trash keepers once the trash is gone. How do we get them out? So then we do enemas, enema soaks, things like that. So that's direct removal of toxins. The indirect detoxification of enemas is to do either water or also coffee or garlic or baking soda, or you can put lots of things in enemas. And those are the main ones I recommend with recommendations, like for specific situations. If you have a coffee enema, this works the strongest to the liver. What a coffee does is substances absorb into the bloodstream, go to the liver, and tell the liver to start detoxing, the detoxification process faster. It kicks it up. I'm throwing out a number because I can't remember. I feel like 20 times is too large, but I think I've seen it. So we're going to go 5 to 20 times faster turnover of detoxification metabolism. Right? So lots and lots of toxins get dumped into the bile. They get dumped into the gallbladder. There's something called a gallbladder flush, which you will feel, followed by a very urgent need to empty your bowel. There's a second gallbladder flush, which if you can wait for it, this is your point of doing an enema. Try to wait for that second flush, and then you empty your bowel, and you just dumped a ton of toxins, not just from what's sitting in your bowel already, but what's also in your bloodstream. Now, if your liver is not able to handle this up process because you didn't feed it yet, and you do a coffee enema, you can feel really crappy. So again, there's things you can do. It's better to start gentle, like just with a water enema. See what your response is, see how you feel, get going on rebuilding and refeeding before you start doing some of the stronger things like coffee enemas, right? Okay. So then we talked about oil pulling, enema, water enemas, and detox baths, which are apple cider vinegar, baking soda, or Epsom salts, magnesium flakes, that kind of thing, minerals, salt. You can do seaweed powder later. That pulls a lot of toxins out, so I don't consider it a gentle detox method. It's in that next step up once you're pretty detoxed, and you can handle a higher ramping up of that. You can do ginger. There's lots of things you can put in baths, but the 3 ones are baking soda, Epsom salts, or apple cider vinegar. You do a half to a cup of one of those things for an adult bath, preferably dechlorinated water. Soak in 20-30 minutes, potentially longer. Watch for symptoms of detoxification. So the goal for gentle detox is for you to get toxins out of your skin. We haven't talked about skin at all. Skin is a huge backup for getting toxins out. If your liver is backed up, you will have something on your skin. You will have rashes or acne or liver spots or angioma spots, cherry angioma spots, or gross or dry skin or flaking skin. Like if your liver can't handle the toxins, it will push it out through the skin. So anytime I see skin issues, number one, they were already inside, unless you touched poison ivy, right? There's very few things that actually cause skin issues from the skin exposure. 8% of skin things are from inside pushing out. It was already there, it's coming out, which is good news. If the toxin keeps coming, it's going to keep coming in your skin, so we want to stop the source of it. But if you have a flare of die-off and you got a rash for 10 days and then it went away, or even you got sick and then you broke out with a rash after your immune system killed the bacteria because of the toxins and it broke out, all of that is good. There's no need to panic. It's not a big deal. It's when something's persistent for maybe a few weeks to a month, or it's really significant, or the skin's breaking down and getting a secondary infection, that we have problems. Okay, that was a little soapbox I just jumped on. People freak out about skin issues because the medical world has no idea what to do with them. Skin issues are something inside. So you're never going to fix the outside until you fix the inside. So from the outside, you won't fix it. Okay. Off the soapbox. Okay. Detox baths. Sit in the bath. What do you feel if it's too much, when you're detoxing too fast? Our goal is for the toxins floating around the bloodstream to come out through the skin, to be in the water, to go down the drain, so we don't have to deal with them anymore. If you're in the bath and it's too hot, you put too much detox agent in, or it's too long, you stayed too long, you will start getting symptoms of the cells dumping toxins into the bloodstream, which will then probably overwhelm the system. That's what you're feeling. The feeling that you feel is maybe lightheaded, ringing in your ears, headache, really dry mouth all of a sudden, sweating, flushed, heart starts racing, just like, oh, there's an intensity on my body. That is what toxins cause. In a more minor set, it's going to be what it feels like when you get a massage and didn't drink enough water, right? You get that headache, achy, muscle, blah, blah, blah. That's what toxins in the body circulating feel like. Sun, you get that from the sun too. Some people do more than others. When you're out really long in the sun and you didn't drink enough water and you have that kind of like bleh. Well, there's a lot of detoxification that happened from that sun exposure. Even if you didn't get sunburnt, even if you didn't get dehydrated, you still could potentially have that detoxification where the systems, the liver, the kidneys, the lungs didn't keep up. Okay. Jump in the detox bath. If the detox bath is too long, if you feel that heart starts racing, get a little headache, just get out of the bath, drink a glass of water. Usually that takes care of it. Occasionally you kind of went too far down the road and you got to clean those toxins, and that takes a little bit of time. But usually if you stop right when you start feeling it, you can nip it in the bud, get some water in the system, and you're good to go. All right. It's good to rinse off after the detox bath just to get the toxins off your skin. Also, things like apple cider vinegar doesn't irritate the skin so much, but Epsom salt or baking soda really could if you leave it on. So get the toxins off the skin. Okay. Oil pulling. Oil pulling is a very gentle detox method. So that's putting olive or coconut oil in your mouth and allowing it to sit. There are two things that happen. One I'm sure of. The one I'm sure of is toxins from the gums and the cheeks and probably from your brain. I think there's good argument for that because there's soft palate. I mean, not that much in between. So we're putting toxins into the oil, and then you spit the oil in the trash can and brush your teeth, and we just detoxed your body. I recommend oil pulling always. I do it every day. It's a great way to keep your teeth clean and your gums clean and the bacteria down in your mouth. You do want to move the bacteria around also, which is what the toothbrush is, so that colonies don't get to hang out with no disturbance. We don't mind active bacteria. It's helpful, but we just don't need colonies. That's not super helpful to our teeth. And potentially the opportunistic, not obeying the rules and creating trash, or AKA bad, bacteria can be the ones making the colonies, so that's the problem. The other thing that I don't know, but my theory is that the oil pulling is also helping pull heavy metals out of the system. So here's my thought. This is theoretical. I've talked to some people about it. No one's like, oh, that's totally wrong. But I've not also seen something that proves that it's totally right. But it makes sense to me. So we're going with it for now until I find other evidence. So there is something called a parotid gland that affects your saliva. It tags your food with PMGs, which help are cell determinants that help your body know how to use certain nutrients that you eat, which is why you should chew your food. Sidebar. Going back to the parotid gland's other jobs are it recycles iodine for the thyroid and it removes heavy metals from the body. All of your blood goes through the parotid gland every 5 minutes. True story. That's a lot of opportunity for heavy metals to be removed. But if there's too many heavy metals, the parotid gland can get damaged, which means your thyroid is affected. A whole other problem. I have a theory that as the parotid gland can secrete things into the mouth, why could it not, when oil pulling and a very intelligent body are present, why can it not secrete heavy metals that it's removing from the mouth or from the body into the spit, into the oil to be spit out of the body? It's my theory. I think it's a good one. We'll see if it's right or not. It could not be how it works at all, but I just think that it might be. Because I see a detoxification effect from oil pulling that seems a lot stronger than I got some toxins out of my gums. So anyway, that's my theory. Okay. Oil pulling is 15 to 20 minutes. You can work up to that. It takes a while. Teaspoon of oil. Olive oil or coconut oil, obviously organic, good quality. That's the point. You can also do a few other cold-pressed oils. I'm trying to remember the one the Egyptians originally used, but it's been around a really long time. All right. Spit in the trash, brush your teeth, not in the drain. Don't ruin your drains. Ionic foot bath or other foot bath. So if you don't have a bathtub or can't do a bathtub or don't like baths or whatever, you can do just a foot bath. Quarter to half a cup of whatever agent you use, 20 minutes, feet in a tub, great. Ionic foot bath, this is where they put an electrical current into the bathtub. And then there are other things like heavy mineral content, which will also create ions, also create an electrical current. So you can plug it in. Don't electrocute yourself. I'm not responsible if you electrocute yourself. Don't electrocute yourself. Okay. So we can put a lot of minerals in. There are those foot pads that pull things out. If you look at ionic foot bath pictures, sometimes the water is literally like floating, crusty brown. Like it's gross, some of the stuff. But wow, that was in you and so good that it's out. So ionic foot baths can be a really nice thing. There's a lot of spas that do them. A lot of natural health kind of spa type clinics will do them. There's one here in Loveland. There's one in Fort Collins. The one in Fort Collins is called Whole Happy You. I'm sorry, I don't remember. No, not sponsored, and clearly I'm not doing a job at my plug. The one here in Loveland, Christy Hall runs it. It's called Living Well Practice or something like that. Living Well something. Didn't look them up before, but I could drive to them. Anyway, so those are two places you can do, but lots of people do them. And those can be really helpful to pull toxins. Juicing is the final one I want to talk about, I believe. Looking at my list. Salt, stock, fat, detox, bath, oil pulling. Yep, juicing is the last one. Juicing is a gentle detox method. The way it was described to me is there's like you juice freshly pressed organic vegetables. So you juice them. They need to be new. The enzymes need to work. You can go to a juice bar, that's fine, but watch them juice it. We're not talking about buying a juice at Whole Foods that has been sitting in a store for a week. It's not going to give you nearly the same effect. So save your money, juice your own, or go to a juice bar. When you juice it, drink it right away. If you have a cheap juicer, more expensive juicers, they do stay stable for about 24 hours. But you can get a $40 juicer, drink it right away, and you have a large amount of the effect for much less cost. Okay. Start with a little bit because you don't know how you're going to react. The shuttle of the juice goes to the cell, knocks on the door, asks if there's passenger pickup, and then brings it out into the detoxification channels. Those detoxification channels have to be fed and they have to be working. So We're still playing the same game. That's why food first is so important. Okay, that shuttle effect, we don't want to overcrowd the shuttles, if you will, in this metaphor. So you might only do an ounce or half an ounce or a teaspoon of juice. That may be all you tolerate, but it's good to do some juicing to pull that out. It's also a great way to get nutrients, including lots of minerals, which help with detoxing, right? So there's a double exchange when you're juicing. That's definitely very helpful. Okay, how to know what to do, and final wrap-ups here. How do you know what of these huge long list of things that I just told you to do? It's great to make a decision, encourage you to make a decision based on number one, accessibility and lifestyle. Number three, because I said number two already, would also be ones that you know work. If the sun makes you feel amazing, find a way to be in the sun every day. There's a reason why you feel good. So what you want to gravitate towards in these detox methods, or to do a gentle detox program, if you will, what you want to do is find the things that make you feel better afterwards. For me, detox baths make me feel better afterwards. So I take a detox bath every night, pretty much. Grounding. I didn't even get to grounding. Oh my goodness. I'm not going to go into it. I'm just going to show you the book. This is the popular earthing book. There also is on Prime, like grounding documentary video that is in my watch list. I'm excited to watch. Grounding is, we collect negative ions. I think it's negative. Yes, negative ions in our modern world, and with other things like wind. Wind creates a lot of negative ions. That charges us wrong, and our circulation as electrical batteries gets off. If we ground to the earth, meaning touching actually natural materials, so you could have cotton or wool socks on, natural materials onto the natural ground, so grass or stone, you are going to be able to exchange those ions to rebalance your electrical conduct. We'll just pretend that's the right word, and help your body to be in balance, okay? Great. So I'm pointing out the window. That's why I'm pointing randomly to the side. So when you're grounding, it's really fun to do grounding and pay attention to see. Different materials conduct better, right? So wet sand is the best conductor. Wet grass and wet dirt is pretty good too. Dry concrete's not going to conduct as fast. But if you sit on your concrete patio or front stoop for an hour, writing or reading, you're going to get a lot of grounding. Other natural materials like trees. So I will often lean up against a tree in the winter when I can't be connected to the ground, or if I'm in the city or something like that, because the tree is connected to the ground. So I'm going to get the same effect. So grounding is really helpful. That's really helpful for me. It helps me sleep better if I go spend 2 or 3 minutes after my detox bath grounding, because I'm nice and warm, standing on the wet and cold grass, or hot grass. Summer's coming. Pick the thing. Okay, sorry, I got off track. Number one, pick the thing that works for you, that's accessible in your life, that will work in your timing, and that is helpful, right? So do not do this whole list if they don't help you. I do not do half of the things on this list regularly. Some of them I've never done. Sunlight is really strong to me, so I like it. I know it's good, but it falls in that other category of detox. I have to mitigate it. It has to be very small. In the same way, near infrared or far infrared, I don't know, I've been in a couple, just for minutes will cause my throat to be sore, which is a die-off symptom for me. Then I have to go oil pull, right? Or a detox symptom for me. So when we have that, it's good. I know it's good, and sometimes there are times that you want to push those slowly and carefully, but also do the things that already easily work, so that the goal is get toxins out. Sometimes we need to challenge and get different toxins out, because apple cider vinegar gets a certain set out, whereas Epsom salts or baking soda will get a different set out, right? So we want to change around, but trust what your body feels good at. Know what's going on, experiment with them, go back to them a few months later and see as your body has changed, maybe now it's time to do a different thing, right? So none of these are inherently the special one, except you have to feed your organs. That one has to happen. You have to eat fat, you have to eat liver in some form, you have to eat salt, minerals, right? Those have to happen. But the rest of it, it doesn't matter. It's what your body wants. It's what you can do. It what works. It's what season it is. All of those things are what's important. There's lots of other detox, kind of grounding or battery charging or structure watering, like Beamer chairs probably work by structuring water, I think. Lasers can work in detoxifying. You can buy lasers, cold lasers that are really safe. So lots of different things. All right. A couple of you hung with me. Good job. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here. Any questions? I'll talk for a minute, but if you guys have a question that you want to type into chat, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, I will just kind of do the finishing up here. So there's so much to learn about detox, but it is vitally important, right? I hope that was one of my main goals of what we talked about, was not just give you tools on how to detox, but why is it important to put it in as an emphasis, as a important schedule, a part of your schedule, right? So hopefully that was clear and helpful. Hopefully those ideas to detox, I couldn't believe when I really wrote a full list of just the things I know about and I'm comfortable with, not to mention Beamer chairs and Rife machines. And there's so many other ways to energetically affect the cells that would cause detox. I didn't even touch on those. I don't know enough. There are so many things. I was shocked at how many things there are options there are for us to detox, which is great because there's a lot of toxins in our world. So it's something that to be important to put as a priority because it's very important. Okay, if you enjoyed this and want to help us to continue to provide education to people, we do have a way that you can donate to our teaching cause, our education endeavors. On our website, bewellclinic.net/events, there is a donate button underneath each online class that we have. Any of them, just go to the same pot. It will take you to a page that says you can put in a dollar amount and send that to us via Stripe, and that will get to us for classes. So you don't have to, it's not required, but just appreciate if you do. And then if you know me, you can send me a check too. That's fine. bewellclinic.net/events. We also have our address on there. You're welcome to send us a check as well if you would like to do that. Okay. I see no questions, and I have nothing else to say about this at the moment. So thank you so much for being on tonight, listening to me talk for an hour and 15 minutes. And I really appreciate your desire to learn and to make your body healthy. I'm really excited for you. I'm here to help you in any way that I can. And that's all for tonight. Have a great day.